Every so often, there's a piece of technology that lands on my desk that almost makes me feel bad for what's about to happen. Almost. This is the Samsung Galaxy Z Trifold, the culminational climax of the last 7 years worth of folding phone technology. Samsung has now doubled the number of hinges to make a tri-folding 10-inch tablet that fits in your pocket, Iron Man style. I do have another one of these to give away, so stick around. Plus, this might be the most shockingest of all new developments, it comes with a charging brick in the box. Right off the bat, it kind of feels fragile, which makes me nervous since I definitely don't want this trifold to die before it's supposed to. And without even getting to the main Android menu, we're treated with a long list of warnings, like don't press too hard on the screen, this phone is not dust resistant, don't remove that protective film on the main screen, and a new one. When folding, always start with the panel that has no camera. Starting with the panel that has a camera can damage your phone. Well, I think we should see what happens when we don't follow instructions. Lifting the edge that has the camera, I can slowly, scientifically, start bending the rightmost flap towards the center. Once it hits about 90 degrees, the trifold starts vibrating and slowly pulsating the entire 10-inch display in a slowly intensifying red hue. What's interesting is that Samsung has some kind of sensor in this hinge, since the phone's vibrations increase in vigor as the flap gets closer and closer to the center, until it touches. Honestly, I think the trifold is being a little overdramatic here. The bend is still quite gentle, and all the hardware is fine. I wouldn't worry at all about accidentally folding the right flap first. We've got plenty of other things to worry about, like paying taxes to pedophiles. But it looks like Samsung has made opening the trifold easier by protruding out the tiny lip on the first flap that opens. It's also around here that I noticed that every single section of the trifold is a different thickness. Not a complaint, of course, just an observation. We'll get to the larger center screen in a second, but first let's see what the exterior display is made from. This guy is the same size as a regular smartphone, 6.5 inches. I'll remove the pre-installed plastic screen protector, and we can work our way up through the Mohs scale of hardness. As you know, plastic scratches at a level 2 or 3, glass scratches at a 5 or 6, and sapphire, which is some pretty amazing stuff, scratches at a level 8 or 9. Diamonds are the only 10, aside from my wife. And just like we would expect on a smartphone made with Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2, this one scratches at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7. Both marks at 6, 7 are definitely visible. I am so sorry. For the inner, larger, flexible display, this is where things get interesting. 7 generations in, we are still seeing scratches at a level 2, with deeper grooves at a level 3. Flexible screens are soft and there's no way around it. But knowing that folding screens are soft is the first way to protect it from damage. As long as you don't let the inner display come in contact with hard or pointy objects like fingernails, keys, or even coins, it should last a really long time. Samsung has tested the folding mechanism in a pristine, controlled environment up to 200,000 times with no damage. That's folding open 100 times a day for 5 years straight. But, you know, not all environments are pristine. There's a 10 megapixel hole punch selfie camera on this inner display. This has the same scratchable clear screen material over the top, so be careful with it. It's also very nice that the entire soft screen is protected when the trifold is closed up tight. There's another 10 megapixel selfie camera on the front glass display, so the whole phone works just fine when it's all closed up, which is good news for later. For the frame, Samsung is using 2 materials. For the most part, everything you can touch with your hands along the exterior is the super thin armor aluminum. And supposedly there is some titanium inside the hinge, but we can't touch that yet. The side-mounted fingerprint scanner is made from plastic, and the metal volume rocker is removable, but let's keep going. I can't believe how thin these frame rails are. For reference, at its thinnest point, Samsung has these frame rails slimmed down to just 3.9 millimeters, while Apple, at their thinnest point on their thinnest iPhone Air, is 5.6 millimeters. Samsung's trifold is a full 1.5 millimeters more thin, while still having dual stereo speakers which the iPhone Air didn't have room for. Amazing things can happen when Samsung decides to flex, and I think they should be flexing way more often. There's the dual SIM card tray with a gray rubber ring to help with water resistance. The Samsung TriFold is IP48, meaning it can be submersed in water for short durations, but it doesn't have much in the way of dust resistance. We'll find out for sure here in a second. The most amazing part is that this USB-C port is basically the thickness of the phone. For example, my own USB-C charger is larger than the phone body. Samsung is literally playing around with the absolute tolerances of reality here. And it looks phenomenal, but I do have a bad feeling that the bin test is gonna reveal some things. Zooming back out to the rear panel with its triple camera lens housing, normally Samsung uses glass back here. And they still are for at least the 3 camera lenses. These are the same cameras on the Z Fold 7, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide on top, the 200 megapixel primary camera in the middle, and the 10 megapixel 3x telephoto zoom camera on the bottom, with, a single colored LED flash embedded in the ceramic glass fiber reinforced polymer that happens to be very scratchable. It's the same color as the redacted Epstein list, and the zigzag texture kind of reminds me of a zipper, which, fun fact, if you go ahead and check your own zipper right now, I bet I could tell you the 3 letters that are printed on the puller. And if I'm right, you gotta let me know in the comments. It's YKK, isn't it? YKK makes most of the zippers on the planet. Like, that single company makes enough zippers to circle the globe 80 times every single year. So it's a pretty safe bet that you're probably wearing one of their zippers right now. I thought that was kind of a cool fact, but it's probably best to stop looking at it now. The other non-screen panel is made from the same scratchable ceramic glass fiber reinforced polymer in the redacted black colorway. Personally, I'm a big fan of the fiberglass. Yeah, it scratches, but I would way rather have a scratched back panel than a cracked glass shattered panel. So I hope Samsung brings this panel material more into their mainstream lineup. The front screen is a 120Hz 6.5-inch 1080p 2600 nit panel that lasted about 17 seconds under the heat from my flame, before the OLED panel went kinda golden and didn't recover. I realized about here that when the Samsung TriFold is folded up, there is a very small gap all the way through the phone body. Obviously, so the outermost edge doesn't rub up against the soft inner screen. Definitely not a problem or anything, I just think it's really cool how Samsung put this all together. The inner 10-inch screen is the same 120Hz OLED, but it is only 1600 nits, and only lasted for about 10 seconds before the pixels burned black and did not ever recover. OLED panels are super expensive, and rumor is that replacing the middle screen alone will cost about $1,100 to replace or repair. But without it being released in the USA quite yet, we won't know for sure. If you remember from earlier, Samsung says this thing is IP48 dust and water resistant, but as you can see, and more importantly here, as soon as dust comes in contact with the TriFold, it becomes a TriFold noisy. You can see the way the iron metallic dust from my backyard collects on the internal magnets. And I mean, yeah, the amount of dirt I sprinkled on top is rather extreme, but with how instantaneous the grinding started, I would be very nervous to ever set the TriFold down on a non-pristine surface, or even put it in a pair of work pants, even if they do have that YKK zipper on them. You can see the location of the mini internal magnets with my magnet paper. There's a lot going on inside of this thing, which we will probably involuntarily see more of in just a second. Sprinkling a bit more dust on the titanium hinge of the TriFold, even more dust gets inside. I think it's rather generous of Samsung to give themselves a 4 on the dust protection rating. I would have left it at 0 or X just to not give people a false sense of security. Doubling the hinges does double the dust danger. Now that our TriFold's got more sand inside than an hourglass, it's time for the bin test. And just for fun, with how thin it is, I figured I'd try to snap just one corner off first. I've seen graham crackers thicker than this phone, so I figured it was worth a shot. The corner of the TriFold did flex and permanently kink with just the pressure of my fingers, right there near that antenna line. 3.9 millimeters is not a lot. By the time you're done milling out the internals for the battery and hardware, you're left with about the same wall thickness as a pop can, and that ain't all too strong. I have a feeling that the insides of the Trifold are about to be on its outsides. With a single bend in the wrong direction, the Trifold becomes the first Samsung ever to kick the bucket during my bend test. With the thin plastic back panels not adding any additional structural support, and the antenna lines splitting the armor aluminum frame, the phone just buckles. But at least now we'll be able to see the insides. Thumbs up for that. The hinges are fine, of course. Samsung's got patented black magic all up in those bad boys, but the frame is so impossibly thin it just can't handle any level of abuse. Definitely don't sit on it while it's open. Which is really the key here. If you're going to treat the Trifold nicely, it's probably the coolest phone on the planet. But if you're the kind of person who's loose and carefree with your hardware, this probably isn't the phone for you. And speaking of getting a phone just for you, I do know of an extra Samsung Trifold that's being given away. A new one, obviously, not this one. My friends over at Dbrand are actually giving away a brand new Trifold. All you need to do is place an order for anything at Dbrand.com by the end of the year, and you'll be entered into a draw to be one of the first people to own one of these Trifolds in the entire world. There weren't many in existence to start with, and now there's one less. If you need suggestions on what to buy, I might recommend their brand new Sketch 2D line. Each design is a hand-drawn representation of what your device would look like if it came out of a comic book. And as a professional doodler myself, I gotta say I'm a fan. Of course, if you want to pick out one of my teardown skins, I don't blame you. These show nearly picture-perfect representations of nearly every popular smartphone. And everything Dbrand sells make you eligible for the Trifold giveaway. Any order, no matter what's in it, is good for an entry, as long as it's before the end of the year. I'll leave a link to Dbrand down in the description that you can check out after we finish the teardown. Owning a fully functional Trifold would be exciting. Must be nice. I mean, technically, one of the screens on my Fold is still functional, but you know what I mean. 75% of my pixels are toasted. I'll slice into and pull away the flexible panel on the non-camera side of the phone. You can see how flimsy and structurally unhelpful these fiber-reinforced panels are. And so far, we do see batteries in at least 2 of the 3 phone sections. This teardown is going to be interesting. The 12-megapixel ultra-wide on top does not have any optical image stabilization. The main 200-megapixel camera in the middle does though, along with the 10-megapixel 3x telephoto zoom. It also has OIS. The 15-watt wireless charging pad sits below the camera units. I'm surprised the copper coils made the cut after slimming down so much. I'm glad because the copper coils always make the phones look so much cooler on the inside. They can also reverse wireless charge headphones in a pinch, which is a feature I've used before. Kind of fun. I'll remove the 22 visible Phillips head screws from the camera unit panel. This frees up the wireless charger flap and the NFC pad that's connected to it. Normally these metal shields that protect the hardware have a bit more substance, but to nobody's surprise there isn't a whole lot of structure in here. I'll take out 15 more screws on the non-camera side flap and then we can work on the middle screen. You can tell this one is glass by the way that it is. Samsung makes some of the best looking phone guts on the planet, and it's a real shame nobody gets to see this unless they've subscribed to my channel. There are another 15 Phillips head screws holding in the hardware in this middle third. Then we can get a close-up look at the ultra-thin upper loudspeaker. Surprisingly, even with the ultra-thin form factor, Samsung still managed to fill it up with balls. Even the lower stereo loudspeaker has more balls inside. Remember, these tiny balls help the speaker sound bigger than it actually is, by giving the internal sound waves more internal surface area to reverberate off of. The main motherboard appears to be on the left side next to the camera units, but there are several daughter circuit boards in the other 2/3 as well. I'll unplug the long ribbon cables and pull out the dual SIM card tray. The goal here is to unbury the triple batteries, so we can calculate how much juice is flowing around in here. The middle section has an upper daughter board with the front-facing selfie camera still attached. Then the main board with the processor and primary cameras comes out after that. This circuit board is where most of the brains are at, like the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor, but in typical Samsung fashion, there is no thermal paste, nor even a thermal system beyond just hoping the aluminum frame absorbs most of the heat. I was also about to congratulate Samsung on the continuing usage of their battery pull tabs, but as you can see, we kinda now have a new problem. The thinness of the batteries makes the pull tabs kinda worthless, and they are bending in a way that makes me extremely nervous. This might be why Apple is now encapsulating all of their batteries in metal, so they don't bend during removal. Bending batteries can cause them to explode, like we saw in the Pixel Fold earlier this year. Either way, I'd rather not catch anything on fire today, so we'll just admire these batteries from the inside of the frame and leave them where they lay. All three different sized batteries add up to a whopping 5,600 milliamp hours. Not only is it interesting that each section has its own battery, but also that the batteries are what take up the vast majority of the phone's internal real estate. The only way for these phones to get thinner in the future is for battery technology to change drastically. But for the moment, Samsung has set the new standard and holds the record for the most useful and best looking folding smartphone. The flexible screen itself does look similar to what we always see on folding smartphones, with the metal sheet supports on the backside and metal mesh along the curvatures. And of course, instead of just one hinge, Samsung threw in two. It's impressive. I'm impressed. And now you can impressively be holding one of your own soon, since any purchase you make with Dbrand from now until the end of the year gets you a chance to win a Samsung Trifold of your own. Again, not this one obviously, mine's gonna take a little rest. It's a new one, and I'll leave the Dbrand link in the description. And thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.